Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule.
That was at the tail end of the 1990s. It was a group of people in the UK that were starting to do this work, and I was one of them.
Supreme Master Ching Hai joyfully presents Rich Hardy the Shining World Compassion and Courage Award with all love, appreciation, and best wishes for his vegan farming, plus $10,000 as a humble token of helping his Lazy Meadow Farm, sanctuary, and his new life. In God's generosity, may heavens forever bless and protect you and your loved ones.
Continue watching to find out more.
Vegan, cause hell is too full already from meat eaters.
Greetings, benevolent viewers. My name is Elvina. The peaceful people of Christmas Island send you kind wishes with an abundance of happy tidings and good health. Welcome to today's program, The Secret Hero, Rich Hardy, Vegan, Part 1 of 2. There have been a number of documentaries in recent years that have exposed the evil in our food system and thus significantly contributed to the increasing number of people embracing the compassionate vegan diet. Dominion, Earthlings, and Seaspiracy are a few well-known examples. The horrifying images that convey the ugly truth of what goes on behind the seemingly natural products offered at the supermarkets are usually the product of dedicated individuals who take considerable risk and endure great hardships to bring these barbaric practices into the public spotlight. Today's show salutes one of the pioneers of this daring undercover investigative journalism, Rich Hardy. Rich Hardy was born into a vegetarian family concerned with the well-being of animal people.
I got into sort of activism around 1993 as a teenager, but before that I was very much involved in day-to-day life with a vegetarian family, which all made the switch during my sort of teens. From a small child, I was, hanging out with my folks at slaughterhouse protests. Gradually, with the animals around the family, I got more connected with them. So I went vegan when I was at school. I was 12 years old, and I saw a pig run into the school playground from a slaughterhouse next door. And I was quite moved about what happened on that day and just all the sort of suffering and cruelty that went with it. I sort of decided at that point to try veganism, and my parents had already done that. And I saw it was, fairly easy to do and adapt to. And, I wanted to do it for the animals as well. So, yeah, that was my first step into trying veganism. And that was, 35 years ago now.
Rich almost went down a completely different path in life, but his fate was already determined, it seems, by his compassionate diet.
I actually signed for a professional football club in London, the only vegan in the squad, and they didn't really like that very much. If you wanted to be a professional athlete in the 1980s, saying you were vegan wasn't a good way to do that. So, they kicked me out, and I went into activism instead, and I'm really glad I made that decision.
Rich began his activism career by campaigning, which included organizing protests, meeting with politicians, and collecting scientific data, among other activities.
I was a campaigner and lobbyist, working on animal issues, trying to talk to politicians about why they should end things like factory farming and look at veganism as an alternative to that.
The The saints have addressed the sin of violence with particular attention to the foods which are eaten. Foods produced by killing living beings, as well as foods which are not pure and fresh, are considered tamasic. Tamasic means dulling and harmful to the mind and body. Swami Sant Saviji Maharaj, vegetarian.
Delightful viewers, we will take a moment to thank heaven for its divine blessings for kind-hearted people. Please stay tuned to Supreme Master Television. Welcome back, radiant viewers. After years of campaigning, Rich felt a need to pause and recharge. What started as a well-deserved break to recuperate actually became the impetus. While in New Zealand on a surfing adventure, Rich had driven past a factory facility full of hen people. While enjoying his surfing, Rich's life took on a new direction when he stepped into his first undercover investigation almost by chance.
It was 1999. I'd taken a year off from campaigning. I was in New Zealand exploring remote sections of the East Coast and seeking out lonely waves to surf. Just a few months earlier, I had celebrated with colleagues a monumental campaign victory that was going to see the European Union outlaw the use of barren battery cages for egg-laying hens. I was ecstatic at the news, but I was also exhausted. The campaign had taken everything out of me, so I needed a recharge before I could contemplate coming back to more work for animals. A few days later, I was sitting on my board beyond the breaking waves. A lull in the waves had got me reflecting on the hens in those sheds. During the campaigning period, I had undertaken lots of talks and given interviews in the media about why it was wrong to keep hens in cages. I had a convincing patter and knew all the scientific and ethical arguments, but I had never actually seen real hens in cages. As I mentioned, when I was talking to politicians, they were saying to me at the time that black text on white paper, the scientific reports that I was relying on to show that hens were suffering in these systems just wasn't enough for them. Show me the evidence, basically. And at that stage, investigations were still in their infancy. They were being used sporadically, but not particularly well by organizations in a professional sense. So at that moment, on that beach, I thought, well, maybe this is a chance for me to go and have a look at what I hadn't seen to date as a campaigner. I directed my board back towards the beach. I was going to that farm and I was going to go inside. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a strategy. I just knew I wanted to see what life was like for those hens in that shed. So I just walked in. And I walked in and I walked through the first shed. I opened the door. The lock wasn't there. So, okay, I can go in and have a look. It was lunchtime. No one was around. I just probably got lucky at that stage. And I pulled back the big door, and the next thing I know, I was confronted by skyscrapers of hens each side of me. So it was a really moving experience. And of course, I did get caught. I heard the door pull back, and then a big guy standing there. He basically escorted me out of the farm and walked me to the entrance and let me go. But fortunately, I had managed to get some film, and I managed to put it in my pocket, and I realized that I got away with it. And I had something valuable in my hands right then. And, well, what should I do with it next? I'll go to the city. I'll find someone. There must be a group there in Auckland that I can give this to. And yeah, there was. It turns out it wasn't an NGO at the time, which I was expecting. It was like the Body Shop, who were running campaigns against battery cages and keeping hens in cages. So I gave it to them, and it came in useful for their campaign. What was nice to see was that they were interested in making use of them and thought they had some value. So that was the spark, really, and I came home and met a few more people involved in doing these projects.
That was the spark that started the fire that brought light to the masses. This experience inspired Rich to continue this path onto much more sophisticated undercover endeavors. In the years that have followed, his heroic successes have become legendary and inspired many.
I mean, obviously it didn't change things straight away, but it had a value, and I hadn't seen that before. So I thought to myself, well, I'd like to try and do a little bit more of this. I didn't think I was particularly good at doing this. I wasn't experienced in like photography or film. This was all about getting evidence. It was all about showing the public what, for many of them, had been hidden from them, and today still is. It's about exposing the truth, showing them how our food's produced, showing us how animals are raised specifically for us, for use in laboratories, for use in the fur industry, to put smiles on our faces through entertainment like circuses.
Although undercover investigations of animal people factories were virtually unheard of at the time, Rich had seen that this was the course of action that would have the most impact. Despite a lack of training in the technicalities, the will to bring about change proved to be his greatest asset.
So it was that point that I got some cameras, and I started to learn how to work them. And I started trying to find ways into factory farms and tell those stories and get them on the outside. That was at the tail end of the 1990s. At that time, there was just a handful of people, I would say, right across the world that I know of. Perhaps a few more beyond that. But it was a group of people in the UK that was starting to do this work, and I was one of them. And we started doing it sort of like right across Europe, and then the US and Australia, the Middle East. And really that kind of followed the path of, vegan groups, animal rights groups. And, we sort of mimicked that really, and sort of started to help and support them getting imagery so that they could run campaigns with it.
Thank you ever so much, Rich Hardy. We are forever grateful for the work you do to shine a light on the endless suffering of our precious animal friends. May heaven continue to support your vital mission until we realize a vegan world for all. Supreme Master Ching Hai joyfully presents Rich Hardy the Shining World Compassion and Courage Award with all love, appreciation, and best wishes for his vegan farming, plus $10,000 as a humble token of helping his Lazy Meadow Farm, sanctuary, and his new life. In God's generosity, may heavens forever bless and protect you and your loved ones. Supreme Master Ching Hai is deeply grateful to the most merciful, beloved God for all the financial help, comfort, and support to the afflicted and needy, and or any good cause over the years as a humble vessel for his compassion and love toward his precious children. To learn more about Rich Hardy Vegan, please visit richcampaigns.myportfolio.com.
No to vegan. Love your low IQ.
Cheerful viewers, thank you for being here with us today. Please join us again next Tuesday, November 8th, for the concluding episode of our program. Coming up next is Last Call to Turn Vegan and Repent Sincerely, Part 5 of 6, on Between Master and Disciples, right after noteworthy news. May heaven's love and light shine on all your days.
Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule and suprememastertv.com/VE.
Nos programmes offrent plusieurs langues. Veuillez visiter suprememastertv.com/schedule et suprememastertv.com/VE.
Nuestros programas ofrecen varios idiomas. Visiten suprememastertv.com/schedule y suprememastertv.com/VE.
Nasze programy oferują wiele języków. Prosimy zobaczyć suprememastertv.com/schedule oraz suprememastertv.com/PE.